Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parsha with Passion, Parshas Shemos. We are heading into Egypt, folks, and this is it. This is where we begin in the Parsha of Shemos. And where we're focusing today is specifically on the role of women. And where we're focusing on the role of women is on the role of men. So stay tuned, and I'll tell you what's up in this class. You see, we have this idea, Maaseh Avos Siman Labanim, the deeds of the fathers is the sign for their children. And so Mitzrayim, Egypt, which was the quintessential Galus, the original exile, and the subsequent redemption from Mitzrayim, that's the model for our exile and our subsequent redemption. We learn from there everything that we need to know for ourselves, the lessons and the hope. What worked and what didn't work. Okay, so what was the role of women in Mitzrayim? And you know that in this week's Parsha, we have the most amazing women. We have Shifra and Puah, we have Miriam and Yocheved, that both took care of the little babies, and they wouldn't kill them, just as Paro requested of them. And we have Miriam, who told her father, you must have children, and you should get married and to have children. And then what happened? We got Moshe Rabbeinu because of that. Women play a huge, huge role. And we've got to understand what did it mean to be a woman in Mitzrayim? What was that? And what was a woman's role in getting out of Mitzrayim? Now, one thing that is so poignant is that Paro came upon a very such a horrible, psychologically nasty idea. And his nasty idea was make the women do the men's work and the men do the women's work. So the women had to do all the heavy lifting. And I think it's so interesting because today, like never before, women are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We're doing many, many roles that traditionally a man would do. And psychologically, it's difficult. And you know who else it's difficult for? It's difficult for the men. They're also not in their old, powerful position. Everything is very, very mixed up, and it causes an exile of sorts. And you know that there is a missing my words over here. I don't know what I was going to say. So what I want to talk about is what did the women do, what can the women do today to bring us out of exile, okay? Now, I'm going to say a statistic that I'm making up on the spot. This is called a statistic of my experience, okay? My experience, speaking to people, has shown that 90%, there you go, 90% is my statistic, of men are not doing well. They are depressed, or in addiction, or not self-actualized, or unemployed, or feeling like they're under-earners and therefore really not feeling great. And then, lucky for the ones who are doing very well, but most women that I speak to, their husbands are not doing great. And it's horrible because each one of those women thinks it's only my marriage, it's only my husband, something is terribly wrong. Everyone else is thriving, and my poor husband, what a disappointment. He's not doing well. He's not excited about his Torah learning, and he's on his cell phone too much, and our relationship isn't nurtured the way that I always dreamed of, and everything is just, like a secret mess. So the first thing that I want to tell you is, please know you are not alone. You are in the company of thousands of other families that have a measure of exile, that are struggling with this. And what I so often see is that it's not just that the men are struggling. Maybe that's what the women are talking about. But if you look at the faces of women, they're struggling. They don't know what it means to be a woman. And I don't say that with judgment. Honestly, I'm not looking at anyone saying, like, you don't know what it means to be a woman. Like, it's so confusing. Like, So in the old days, the man had the traditional role where he was going to call the shots. Well, he's not doing a great job calling the shots now. I have to call the shots, but I want to be like taken care of and nurtured, and I'm the one who's figuring everything out for the family. So maybe I'm not being taken care of and nurtured. So that's his fault. So I become tougher and stronger and more bossy, and I'm miserable. Okay, and maybe the women aren't addressing their own misery quite as much because it just feels like, well, I have to do this, you know. So I want to help. I want to help this, and by offering a few insights, and it's kind of like, here are the minefields, here are the patterns, and these patterns are rampant, and I believe that they have direct correlation to exile and to Egypt and to our upcoming role as women as we head towards redemption. Okay? So we're going to look at three things. Number one, control. Just going to say that, women controlling their husband. Where does that come from and what does that mean? Number two, a woman's insecurity eating up her relationship. Number three, a woman's spirituality making her self-righteous. Okay? Let's go through these one by one and just see how our exile has played into this and how feeding this thing is keeping us trapped and keeping our marriages trapped. Okay? Number one, women controlling their husbands. Okay? Controlling our husbands. All right. So here you have a basic scenario. I'm gonna have to use a cell phone because cell phone is just a rampant addiction you hear about, and we're gonna have to start with that. So he's on his phone, and maybe he's playing games. Let's just keep it benign. He's playing games, and you're pretty sure that it's your job to tell him to get off the phone, and that it's too much. You're like positive you have to tell him. And if he's not spending enough time with the child, you're just sure that you have to tell him, this kid needs you and that kid needs you, and why aren't you spending more time with this, and why don't you go here and why don't you go there, and this is what you should do. And more insidious than that is this is underneath the words of, I need to call the shots in the house. I need to take care of this whole family. I need to make sure my husband stays on the straight and narrow. That's my job. So remember, it's like Egypt, where the women are taking on the men's job. Now, it's not any man's job either to keep his woman on the straight and narrow, but it certainly is a male role to lead, and it's a feminine role to receive. So we have this old idea of mashpia makabel, the one who gives the imprint and the one who receives the imprint. So the women are getting into this mashpia role. I must be mashpia. I'm trying to, the influencer. It's all on me. And this comes from a place of great fear. It doesn't come from a place of nastiness or bad midos. It comes from fear. Because the fear is, if my husband isn't doing all the things that are on the checklist that I think that husbands should do, then I am bereft. I'm bereft of a leader. I'm bereft of someone who can really take care of me. My children will be bereft, and there's my brother in Sion. Hi, Ben. Come say hi.
You can say hi?
Well, it's great. I'm talking about men, and here's a man, specimen A. What do you think of my statistic that 90% of men are depressed, feeling unactualized, or under-earning, and just not doing well?
I don't know about the number, but
I made it up.
It's probably, it probably sounds right.
Speaking from a man, what do you have to say? I'm giving him the mic, but they can't see you.
Speaking from a man,
There you go.
Hi everyone. An honor to be on a Rivka Malka video. I feel like a celebrity.
You are a celebrity.
I think we all need somebody to believe in us, and not just to believe in their heart, but actually to tell us pretty often. And men need it even more, because it's a lot of pressure from society to succeed in the the measuring stick for success is sometimes very high and is expected very early on in life. And sometimes it takes a while to find our stride, and it doesn't always happen at the age that society unrealistically expects it. So the only way we accomplish it if somebody says, I believe that you're going to find your way and you're going to do amazing. And the process is part of your greatness. You're falling and you're tripping and you're getting up again is going to make you amazing. And we have to hear it a lot, especially from our wives. We have to hear that they believe in us. Yeah, we do.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for that insight. I remember when I first got married, I remember this specifically. I'm walking down the street in Kiryat Sefer with Chanaita. Yeah. She herself was married probably about a month, but she was giving me marriage advice. And she told me this, but I didn't forget it. She said, you have to be your husband's cheerleader. Exactly what you said. She said when he goes out into the world, he's got his boss, and he's got all the people that he has to be accountable to, and he's got to high five people at Minin, and he's got to be the man. And actually, you're the only opinion that truly will make him or break him. And that's what you need to know.
Wise words from a Klatsko.
Yeah, wise words. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm glad he came in there. Perfect timing, because I'm getting all negative about this topic. And he brought in a little positivity. But I'll tell you the truth, there is so much positivity. I'm focusing now on the things that are not as on the minefields, on the places where we do or can stumble, okay? Because I just want you to really recognize these places. So this is like a woman-to-woman talk, okay? I give a class called The Art of Men. In The Art of Men, I talk more in depth. It's just not as comfortable for me to do that online. I think the examples are very, very personal. For me to do that in this forum, really getting into the nitty-gritty, but I really want us to start with understanding where we go wrong, okay? We're going to get into the positive. Yay, Ben Sion, thank you. Okay. So, finishing up with this topic, women controlling their husbands. Something that Ben Sion, Rabbi Klatsko, said really relates to this, okay? We don't give enough weight to how much our opinion matters to our husbands and how easy it is to tear them down. And that one of the main things that a man needs is respect. And when you get in there and undermine his leadership and undermine your faith in him and undermine your trust in him, you actually make your man into a little boy. You actually don't have that leader, that rock that you can lean on, because you create this cycle where you are in charge, and slowly you change the positions. And there's so many things that feed into this. It's not just you, it's not just the woman, it's the entire society is leaning towards the feminizing of men and the disempowering of men. But when we ourselves do that, we lose out big time. So what do you do? What can there be in place of controlling, basically controlling a man and giving your opinions and telling him every time he made a mistake and telling him what to do? What can be in that place is trust, is being willing to take that leap of trust and saying, I trust you, I believe in you, and constantly affirming that trust both to yourself and to him. And of course, you're allowed to have opinions and ideas, just like in any relationship, but within the context of trust and belief in another person. When you let go of control, you allow people, and this is children, this is friendships, this is certainly husbands, you allow people the space to spread their wings and to grow into who they were meant to be, to make their own mistakes. I would hate if somebody gave me a list of my mistakes. The list is huge. It's just a very large list of mistakes, of course. That's what it means to be human. But do you know how many of us have a list of our husband's mistakes? Every business deal that he made that didn't go through, every time he totally messed up with his mother, and every time he didn't show up for us at a party, and every time he ignored us, and the whole list, and his personal mistakes and the decisions that he made about jobs. Oh, we have the list. And again, I don't want to be negative. I just want you to really gain from this. It's always my tefillah before I do these shir. I'm like, please Hashem, help me to say what people need to hear. And for some reason, what's really coming through for me is not like the coochie-coo stuff. It's like, please recognize the damage that this is doing to you and to your husband. When you let go of controlling your husband, it's a minute-by-minute thing sometimes, It's biting your tongue. And the more that you replace that tongue biting with appreciation, with noticing what he actually does do, with believing in him, with trusting, the more you will enjoy him and be able to see him for who he really is and build him up. Okay, that's on that. The second thing we said is that a woman's insecurity eats up her relationship. So this is old news. This is actually from the beginning of time. We have Adam and Eve, and we have the curse of women is v'hu yimshol, and he will rule over you. So in some eras that, the way the male-female dynamic worked is that literally the man was the head of the house. Okay, we have much more of a partnership now. So, but we still have this dynamic of he will rule over you. What does that mean? That in an oxymoronic way, even though we think we're so capable, we're more capable and all this stuff, we still have this space in us that makes the man be in charge of our emotions. That we give a man this power to make us feel great and make us feel bad, and all the time being oversensitive to his every bit of validation. And it's a real thing. I remember my husband opened up, I think it was Revolve Sefer for Chassanim. That's a book to help young men who are getting married. And the first thing in there this was the first instruction. He said, he's talking to the man, everything your wife does is for you. Everything. She's not saying it necessarily, but if she moves a plant from one side of the room to the other, she's hoping you'll notice. And you have to know that. He says to the men, you have to realize that. It doesn't make any sense in a man's world. Like, this had to be in a book. Everything she does, she's kind of waiting for you to notice, waiting for a compliment, waiting for some affirmation. Okay. Just because that's the way that we work doesn't mean we need to be enslaved to that. I heard a great acronym yesterday, pardon me. I read it. It was called NET, Needless Emotional Turmoil. We can spend a lot of time, years, in needless emotional turmoil. You come down into the kitchen, you're in the mood for a nice hello, he's on the phone. Boom. Needless emotional turmoil. You go in your head, I just wanted to say good morning, and you start going a little bit crazy. You have some people at the Shabbos table, and he's speaking to his buddy, and he's not speaking to you on the side, and then afterwards he gets tired and sleeps on the couch, and you have to end up cleaning up, and you're thinking, he ignored me, I'm overworked, he doesn't help, and it just keeps on going on and on and on. It's like, I once had a niece who was very, very needy, I guess. She's always such a drama queen, and someone who's working with her said she needs an IV of love. That she's like, that's what she needs. The way that she's built, she needs this constant IV of love. And I think in our weakest, I think that women also have that. We need this constant IV of affirmation, of validation, it's like a built-in insecurity. But that doesn't have to be a weakness. That doesn't have to work against us. We don't have to create net. We don't have to create needless emotional turmoil. If you go throughout your day and notice your thoughts as you interact with your husband, notice how many times the default is to feel bad. The default is to feel critical. The default is to get mad at him for like nothing, basically, like tiny little reasons. And what's really going on is just like, this is how we're built. And if we can overcome this curse, if we can find our own validation, our own happiness, go out and have a good time. Be a person. Don't just have hobbies, have friends. Cultivate your own spirituality instead of constantly looking at and waiting for him it's a very subtle waiting. I don't think most women will totally admit to how much they're like waiting for their husband to somehow show up and appreciate them. Cultivate it within yourself. Then you take down the stakes and you stop putting so much needless pressure on him, because guess what? He doesn't work like you. He's not trying to do anything bad. He's just functioning like a human being who is a man functions. So all of this emotional turmoil is needless emotional turmoil, and a very amazing exercise. And I had to work on this a lot in my marriage. I when I was younger, I guess before I was married and first 10 years of marriage, I was just so insecure. I was just so, oh, there goes my notes, goodbye notes. I was so insecure. I was so hypersensitive to criticism, hypersensitive to being included, hypersensitive to hypersensitive even to other women. Like, I was just so hypersensitive, and it makes for a really miserable person, and it makes for a hard person to be in relationship with. So that is another area where we keep ourselves in exile when we create and feed into needless emotional turmoil. So if that's not real, I have a question for you. It kind of sounds to my own ears like I'm almost saying, be mavater, like just give in, don't get all upset, whatever happens, happens. And one part of me is saying that it is saying you have to be chilled. You have to be flexible. You have to understand you're in a relationship with a real person, and this real person is not you, and they are not a woman, and the way that they function, how they're going to understand your needs is so different than how you understand your needs. But I'm not saying give in on all your needs. See, there's a very, very easy trick. If you need something from a man, instead of creating needless emotional turmoil, just ask for it. Just ask for what you need. I need a hug. I need help, without any judgment, any criticism. It really has nothing to do with him. He's not trying to withhold it from you. You just happen to need it. I need a compliment. I think I told you guys, I have a lot of fun putting on my tichels in the morning, and my husband, he enjoys that I get dressed properly. I don't think he specifically is thinking like, ooh, purple and burgundy, what a great match, and I love how she put that red in there. I don't think he's thinking that, but I'm enjoying it, and who else is around? So I gotta say, look at this. You have to notice these colors. This is giving me so much pleasure. So he could say, yeah, very nice. I'm asking for it because it's interesting to me. I want it. I want that. I want to connect on that level. Our men are very tender, and it took me a long time to really realize this and to believe it. But this is the absolute truth. There is nothing that makes a man happier than making a woman happy. Now, if your marriage is struggling, you might not believe me. But this is the wiring of men, in the same way as the things that I've been describing is the wiring of women. It makes them happy to make us happy. So in a sweet marriage, your goal is to be an easy person to make happy. Because the more he can make you happy, the more he's going to want to make you happy. And the more you put on the controlling, critical, insecure, irritable stuff, the less of a man you will evoke. Until you completely turn the tables, and now instead of being the receiver, you are the mashpia, or you're just the miserable non-receiver. Letting someone make you happy means being willing to receive. And you ever have a kid bring you a bundle of dandelions? Imagine you said to that kid, I don't really like dandelions. I'm more of a roses girl, Well, you'd crush him or you'd crush her. They'd never bring you dandelions again. You take all the pleasure out of it. But how often does that happen with women where, our husband will do something for us, little or big? I remember years ago, this was so bad, and my mother was there to witness. So we had this kitchen that was built so stupidly. It was an old house. The floors were white and the walls were white tile. So if you cook in a kitchen with white tile, they get incredibly grimy. And if you keep a house like I keep a house, they get seriously incredibly grimy. I'm not washing all my walls, my literally white tiles till the ceiling. Pardon me. So one day I come home and my husband is spraying, he got in this mood, so he's spraying oven cleaner on the tiles, which is amazingly brilliant, and it's wiping and it's washing off all the grime from the tiles. And he's making these big circular motions, and I'm watching him. And my mother, who is the ultimate in being a good wife, she's watching him too, and she taught me something really important even in that moment, although I learned it as a child, is that men do really well with an audience. It's so nice to just be company for someone. You don't have to fix them or tell them what to do or even serve them all the time. Just be there with your husband. So she was just being there, being an audience, and he was getting very excited that these tiles were turning white. Well, I came in and I could not get excited. I knew that I'm supposed to be excited that he's washing my walls, but do you know what happens when you clean? Can't even handle it. When you clean a wall and you make it white, then the darker parts that you can't reach unless you have like a 10-foot ladder and you're willing, and this is going to be a long project, then the darker parts look darker. So all over your wall is like a swoosh of a circle of white, and then at the top there's this rim of brown tile. And the kitchen, to my eyes, looked worse than ever. Better it should be like an even layer of grime. So I completely didn't give him like any credit, any thanks, any laughs, nothing. I was just like, how's that? That's not a good idea. No. It's going to look worse. It was just, that actually, I think he handled it okay, but I'm thinking back to that example of somebody bringing you dandelions. Like, how many more times is a man going to go in and help you clean your kitchen if you give him that response? You didn't do it well enough. I could have just said, oh my gosh, it looks gorgeous. And guess what? The next day I could have said, you know what? I love what you did with the tile. It's making me so happy. Every time I go in the kitchen, I see the white. Could you finish it? Would you mind doing the top of it? That would just make my day. I would love that. Okay, he could say no, but he probably won't say no. He would probably really like to do it, because who doesn't like to give a really awesome gift and be appreciated and be celebrated? It's amazing. You just ask. And a lot of the things that women do is they ask indirectly, hoping that the man will figure out what they need. I remember I wrote something to a young bride once, how all of marriage is, there's 3 components to tefillah, to davening, which is shevach, bakasha, hoda. Yes, praise, requesting, and thanks. Those are the 3 components of a prayer. I praise you, Hashem. I request of you. That's a way of, I make a connection with you by being willing to receive from Hashem. First I say, you're awesome. Please, could you help me? Then I thank you. That's the 3 components of a relationship and of communicating with a man. And I remember that when I was telling her about requesting, something that was, it was many years ago, so I think this must have been a very critical lesson that I was learning back then, was that your husband will not know what you need. You actually have to say it. Again, without blame or judgment. There's nothing wrong with him that he doesn't know what you need. When I'm sick, maybe I like someone to sit by my bed for a couple of minutes, and that makes me feel cozy and protected. Maybe he likes to be left alone and to know that someone else is taking care of the whole house. So I think that was the example that I remember, that my husband thought that he was being, world's greatest husband, 3 little kids. He's out there working his head off, taking care of them. And what was I doing? Being a young, dumb wife, feeling bad that he wasn't visiting me when I was sick. Totally not appreciating that he was taking care of the whole house, because I was so like, I need this and he's not giving this to me, because first of all, I never asked for it. Secondly, I wasn't having my appreciative lens on. I wanted things just the way I thought that they should be, which is that little bit of control again. There's so much more to say, and my notes are on the floor. So just hang on. They're all the way down there beyond the porch. So give me just a minute to think of what I want to tell you. There is a general sense that men are, that they don't get it. There is a certain self-righteousness in women. And I think back to Mitzrayim, I think back to Egypt, and I think about how the women had 6 babies at a time, and that's what the Torah tells us. And what does it mean to have 6 babies at a time? That's a question in itself, but it's just so important to notice that while they were both enslaved, the women were still birthing children. The women still had a connection and to life, whereas the men did not. And it was up to the women to nurture that life. It said that the women would go out to their men in the fields and they would pretty themselves up so that their men would be attracted to them and kind of wake up to life and be with them. And the women were responsible, made themselves responsible for the relationship by teaching their husbands, there's life, there's us, there's me. I'm going to pretty myself up for you. This is worth investment. And we need to take that spirituality that we have, that awareness, that ultra awareness, and use it to encourage our husbands. Use our emunah, this fantastic emunah, this faith that we have so strongly, to have faith in our husbands. To say, you're not doing well, don't worry. I know Hashem has a plan for you. You're not doing well, you know what? This is the marriage that Hashem planned for us, and we are going to get through this. To use that spirituality to lift our husbands, not to put them down, not to be self-righteous and think, if I was a man, I would learn this much and I would do things so differently. We can all figure out exactly what we would do as a man, And you know what's so ironic and humbling? I bet men could do the same thing with a woman. They know exactly what it means to be a good wife. They know what they need. They can give you the prescription so easily. Do you know what the prescription is? Pretty much a happy woman who appreciates them and respects them and takes care of herself. That's pretty much it. Most men will basically go around the world and back for such a woman that is a pleasure to make happy, that's light in life, that believes in them and that respects them. We really got to make dinner, and we really got to clean the house, and we really got to do the laundry. But like the Amelia Bedelia story, those things are so secondary to being a genuinely easy and lovely person to live with. That's what we want to cultivate, is to take down our guard, to take down this almost like a feminist guard that we have, and we're enslaved too. I have a lot of compassion on us. It's not easy. I always say it's so confusing to be in an era where women are so strong and so capable, and what do we do with that? It's very confusing. I actually, there is a woman named Hannah Deitch. You can email me about this if you want. She's giving a tele-series with 20 different speakers, and over the next week or 3 weeks or something, and the speeches come right into your inbox. One of the speeches is mine, and it's about specifics of navigating a relationship when you have a really strong woman and a gentle man, and keeping your roles balanced and beautiful within that dynamic. So you can contact me about that if you want to connect up with Hannah Deitch, and specifically to connect up with that class as well. But I think that it is confusing for us as well, and I have a lot of compassion on us. And when we see where we are going wrong, we can then start looking at we can then find freedom in letting go of those things, because what a woman wants is to be cared for, and she wants someone who wants to make her happy, and she wants to be nurtured and nourished. And really, it starts from her. It's a ring is the circle of a marriage, and it is like a circle. And the point of the circle, the place where the pen hits the paper, where that circle begins, is with a woman. She's the catalyzing force for the nature of the relationship. So these are some things that I want us to think about. the women in Mitzrayim, the Geula, the coming out of Mitzrayim, the women who held on to the hope that, in a couple Parshas later, we're going to see how we left Mitzrayim with song and dance and tambourines that we brought along because we knew we'd always leave. And this is us right now, that we ourselves will bring redemption to our families and to our husbands through nurturing our marriages. Have an awesome Shabbos, everyone, and don't forget to daven for your husbands or for your husbands to be when you light the Shabbos candles. Bye-bye.